given how the Panthers got to the finals, given how the Oilers got to the finals, who do you think this week off maybe hurts or benefits more, if anybody, heading into this one?
We're kind of just guessing here, but if I were to say, I'd say it probably was better or not as bad for Florida. They've been to the final before. Mm-hmm. They've had 2 instances last year where they closed out series really early and had like a week off. So they've kind of been through this mini training camp playoff reset before. They know what to deal with it. I would think for Edmonton, because it was so exciting and they played, not necessarily well the last game, but closing out that series, played well. Stuart Skinner in a role. They haven't been here before. They are in Canada, where it's a lot of attention on them. Canada's team, what it means, legacies, future contracts, all that stuff. You don't want to talk about that and be forced to sort of consider it for 4, 5, 6 days. You want a couple days, rest their bumps and bruises. Like, unless you're Evander Kane, he would do really well with a week off. Guys who are hurt, they would do well. But beyond that, I think Edmonton probably would have preferred a Thursday or a Wednesday start and get to it and keep the ball rolling.
Mike, we had Jamie McLennan on earlier in the week, and I asked him a question about, how this matchup stacks up on the defensive side with the defensive pairings back into the goaltending. I want to ask you on the forward side, who do you think? I mean, depth is obviously an issue, and you've heard about the grittiness of the Florida Panthers in their top 6. I saw an article out that Leon Draisaitl was interviewed, and he said that, we're ready to match that intensity. Do you think that's the case? And who do you think ultimately has the edge in the top, let's say the top 6 for both teams' forwards?
Well, in the top 6, you always have to say Edmonton, because they got Leon on one line and Connor on the other. I think that's enough. And they have Zach, who's a 50-something goal scorer, and Nuge, who's a very good player. And they have those high-end stars. And I think Leon obviously is correct. They will match their intensity, but they can match their intensity in a different way. And I think this is going to be one of the interesting things about Game 1 specifically, is that will Edmonton sort of try to be as physical as Florida? Because you can be intense in your puck battles and in your face-offs and in your scrum, and battle. But if your game is not necessarily to run out of the way to hit guys or whatever it might be, then, you start doing that and you get out of character, and maybe you end up chasing a game that's not necessarily yours. So how Edmonton finds that balance of intensity and physicality, but also playing the way that they play. But yeah, certainly I think the high-end stars of Edmonton carry the day. They make their lines better. But if you look at just the way that Florida can roll out 3, even 4 lines, they all play the same. Paul Maurice doesn't really fear the third line playing against McDavid or the second or the third. They can play a lot of different guys. Even the fourth line in Lorentz and Stenlund, they can play against top lines. So I think in that sense, there is less concern about the bottom of the roster for Florida than there would be about Edmonton. And Edmonton is hoping that the bottom of the roster sort of treads water, top of the roster finds ways to win games along with special teams. And Florida's thinking, let's not play on the special teams and let's just wear them out. And whoever wins it for us, whether it's line 1, 2, 3, 4, we like our chances in that kind of game.
This Florida forecheck, how do the Oilers go about kind of disrupting that? Or do they just let the Panthers kind of play into that, let them cross a few lines, take a few power plays here or there, and use that vaunted special teams? Just the Florida forecheck, if you could give us a bit of scouting report on that.
Yeah, so kind of almost 2 different questions, right? So the first part's easy. As far as Florida trying to be physical or chippy or scrums or headlocks or face washes, Edmonton wants to stand up for themselves, but they don't want to go down that path. Yeah. And they will not look for calls, but they will trust that the officials won't let it turn into something that doesn't resemble a hockey game because Florida wants to take it into the alley. So that part's easy. Just be strong, be physical, but be under control if you're Edmonton and try to get as many penalties against Florida as possible. The forecheck is something else entirely. And it's easy to say, well, you got to move it quickly. You got to work to open ice. Well, obviously, you have the answers. It's just trying to execute them, make it very difficult. A whole bunch of good teams in the playoffs and all year long haven't been able to solve Florida's forecheck over the course of 60 minutes, over the course of 7 games. It wears on you. So I think the key will be obviously decision-making for the defenseman. I think making a good first pass and a good second pass. That's almost the difference in Florida's forecheck. A lot of times you get one good pass, you kind of diffuse the pressure, and you have a chance to take a step, make a play, and keep going up the ice. With Florida, because the defensemen are so active down the wall, so even if you make a good pass by the first forechecker to a winger, that winger is going to be pressured right away. Now, he has to make a good pass to someone else, and then maybe you can go. Now, can you, on occasion, catch them being so aggressive, whether you activate your weak side defenseman, that net front defenseman, which Edmonton has done more and more of, that'll be really effective, or just happen to beat them up the rush with your forwards to get a 2-on-1 when they overcommit on aggression? Yes, like that will be the game plan for Edmonton. It'll kind of be quick strike, breakdown. We got a good chance here. But there will be moments in this game, in this series, where the Oilers get caught in the spin cycle, where it's forecheck, forecheck, forecheck. Edmonton might get the puck out, and they just flip it out. Here comes Florida right back in, forecheck, forecheck, forecheck. And it just comes where, kind of like the Dallas game, game 6, where Edmonton never really got the puck out of their own end. They just sort of survived, defended, and then changed to survive and defend again. That's how Florida wears on you. And they basically count on the fact that you may make it a period, making good decisions and being clean. You may make it 30 minutes. Will you make it 40? Will you make it 60? Will you make it game 2, 3, 4? At some point, as is human nature, when you have players under pressure, they'll make mistakes. And if you have defensemen who are not maybe gifted puck movers, you're going to make more mistakes. And that's where Florida's going to try to lean on Edmonton.
So I guess following that up with, in terms of lineups for you, Mike, would you make any changes both on the back end or that forward group? Specifically, I guess, bottom 9, bottom 6, I'm kind of thinking of there to counter what you just brought up with the Panthers. Or are you running, Broberg staying in there, that type of thing? You talk about puck moving and everything. Or are you switching somebody out, a Corey Perry, something in the bottom, or anything on the blue line to counter what the Panthers might bring?
I don't know if Edmonton has a player that would counter that kind of stuff. I mean, Broberg's a better puck mover and skater than Desharnais. And if Desharnais is healthy, he probably will play in the series. I probably roll the same 6 defensemen to start the series. See how they deal with it. See how it goes and see what happens. You have Desharnais there if he's healthy to use, maybe a bit more physical, whatever. As far as the forwards go, you're going to need guys who can move. You want guys who are strong and physical, but you need guys who can move. So you want to make sure to have as many good skaters and puck movers up front as well, because just banging the puck off the glass and running into people, that's not going to slow Florida down. Like, you got to be able to make plays with the puck, get up the ice, make Florida defend. Don't let them get to where they want to go on the ice with the forecheck. So, there are options there. I would be inclined, that don't break up the winning lineup kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see even though game 6 wasn't pretty for Edmonton, let's see how they deal with game 1, and then knowing that you've made changes before mid-series, it's gone really well, so you always can do that heading into game 2.
Mike Johnson of TSN joining us, Nielson Show, EdmontonSportsTalk.com, Lieutenant Eric Jason Milne, YouTube. Trev, did get a question in from the Nasty Chat here on YouTube, Mike. Too much talk about the Oilers needing to adjust to Florida's game. Can't wait for the Oilers to score 4 power play goals in game 1 and have the Panthers scrambling to adjust. And I'll go here too, Mike. We're taking a look at PK percentages during the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Oilers sitting at a great 93.9. Right behind, though, at 88.2 are the Florida Panthers. What is that PK going to provide to the Oilers? How will the Oilers adjust that? How will the Panthers have to adjust their penalty killing to the Oilers' vaunted power play? And is that where, we talk about X factors so much, and does it just come down to special teams this series? One of the bigger aspects, this Edmonton power play, their great penalty kill, but the Panthers sitting right there at the PK 88.2.
Yeah, I mean, beyond the goaltenders, I think special teams for Edmonton are a big part of their success and how they are better. Where's a spot where we can be better than Florida in this regard. We know how good the penalty kill is for Edmonton, that down pressure with the forward, the activation of the D, the clogging up the middle, the stuff they do really well. Now, Florida runs that little pop play into Reinhart as well as any team in the league. Matthew Tkachuk, one of the best sort of goal line passers in the NHL. So, Edmonton will have to be careful not to overcommit and then leave that quick little 2-on-1 with Tkachuk and Reinhart, because they feasted on that all year long. That'll be something to be mindful of. As far as Edmonton, and the writer is correct, absolutely Edmonton wants Florida to take penalties. Florida's one of the most penalized teams in the league. Let them take penalties and let us win games in the power play. That's part of our game. We're amazing at it, have been for years. What Florida does better than most on their penalty kill is they don't let you get set up. No matter who it's been against, whether it's been against whatever they played along the way, the Rangers, the Carolina, they have, relative to the regular season, decreased the amount of zone entries, zone possession time by a considerable margin in the playoffs, because they just do a great job of clogging up the neutral zone, challenging, turning pucks over, puck retrievals, puck clears. So they never get in to get set up. The great equalizer, of course, is 97. Like sometimes you can be in the right spot. You can be in your right positions. But when he just skates past you because he's faster, what are you going to do? And I think this is where Edmonton's power play is unique because they don't take a lot of time to get set up because they have McDavid. You know, they drop it back to him. He skates in. He beats the guy. He makes a play, and they're in. So that will be an interesting battle. That's where Florida's success has started, just by denying zone entries. Don't let them get in there and set up. But that's where Edmonton is better than any other team in the league because of McDavid. They get set up quicker and more often than anyone. If they can do that, they will still find success. If they can't, then Florida will be pretty good at it.
It'll lead into my final one here, Mike, and we once again appreciate your time on a busy time of year for you guys. You mentioned McDavid. We mentioned the Panthers. Getting close. They've been here, done that, lost. When it comes to this, and again, you've played the game. You've been around guys that have at this time of year and in this particular series, do we just X's and O's are one thing, systems and all that? Does this just come down to, at the end of the day, a will in the corner, a will on a line change, a will in a certain moment, just to get things over the line? Guys are beat up, they're bruised. I mean, hockey too. You kind of go out with your systems. We all know that, but is this just come down to a will in the Panthers needing to get this one? They've been so close. McDavid and Draisaitl, this window, and you mentioned 97 as a difference maker. Is it just kind of, we can talk here, we have shows, we have all these segments and hits, and we deconstruct and everything. Is it just kind of coming down to the will at this point of the tournament and this point of the season?
Listen, I never won a Stanley Cup, so I can't say for sure.
Sure.
But I'm always hesitant to say it's a who wants it more. Because that implies the team that doesn't win didn't want it.
Sure.
And that is not correct. Like, if Edmonton loses, it's not because they didn't want it enough. It's not because they weren't willing to do whatever it takes to win. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes you're not as good. So whatever reasons, sometimes it happens. So I would say, yes, you absolutely baseline. If you don't have the will to compete as hard as the other team, then you have no chance. But I'm going to assume both teams have that. Right? Like, both teams have that will to do whatever, sacrifice whatever, take themselves out of their comfort zone, be as physical as whatever it takes, block shots, whatever. Because they're in the Stanley Cup Final. They're about to try to achieve a dream and something they've aspired to do for their entire lives. So I don't think it's necessarily will. I wouldn't say that. I would say sometimes it's matchups, but I think it's more taking that will and that passion and that desperation and then executing. Like, you got to execute. You can't just go out there and want it and not be thinking. If you can think clearly, make the plays you're supposed to make, play the way you're supposed to play, while also bringing that unbridled juice, then you give yourself a chance. And even if you have that, you still might not win because Bobrovsky might be incredible, or Skinner might stop 34-35 when you outshoot a team 35-10. That's how it goes. That's the nature of hockey. But I don't necessarily, the will's got to be there. That's a given. But I think it's more execution while being desperate, which is not an easy thing to do. The team that does that more often, a little bit better, has the better chance to win.
Well said. I've always been one to kind of balance the analytics side and the eye test side. I think both worlds, can coexist and we can all be happy. But it's a game played on ice, Mike, kind of as you said too. And in down in Florida way, maybe a bit more of a sloppier ice given the temperatures. But we appreciate your time again this morning, Mike. Enjoy, keep cool, stay cool, and we'll look for you on the TV and other places as well. Thanks for your time, Mike.
All right, boys. Have a good weekend. Can't wait to talk next week about a game. Imagine that.
I know, yeah. We'll be right thick into it by that time. So talk next Friday, Mike. Enjoy game one and the remainder of the series here